This is the Analysis in Chains with Nathan Williams and Neil Kieran.
Welcome, everyone, to Analysis in Chains. I'm Nathan Williams, and joining me today for this interview is Simon Yu, the founder and CEO of StormX. Thank you, Simon, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. Really appreciate it.
StormX is a really interesting company. It's one of sort of the older, more established cryptocurrencies out there, and it's basically competing with TaskRabbit and other task-giving services on the blockchain. Can you tell us just a little bit about how you started it and what problems specifically you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very interesting story. So we actually started back around 2014. So my co-founder Calvin and I were really fascinated about blockchain for separate reasons. And it was right around after Mt. Gox and Silk Road when all the press was about, whether Bitcoin is a tool for drug smuggling or is it for money laundering. And the press was just all over how bad Bitcoin was. But for us, we were really fascinated about the technology. For me, having come from a finance background, my last job being in banking, I was fascinated by the fact that you could disrupt this industry with not having to pay the pesky credit card transaction fees, the 2.75% fees that go on in every transactions. So back then, Bitcoin scaled a little bit better and is very interesting. So I realized that this could be disrupting a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And for Calvin, he was very interested in technology with the decentralization, with the increased security, and both of us were fascinated. And we started building an app that allowed people to just earn free cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin was our first start, but our idea was basically, hey, this really cool technology is going to be life-changing. It's going to start disrupting almost everything out there. But most people are afraid to touch it. They're afraid to just risk their money buying it because there's so much negative news and it just keeps going down. So what if there was a way for us to allow people to just earn this cryptocurrency without having to spend their money or risking it? So we started out by building BitMaker, which is now StormPlay, which is a very simple concept of, you can check out like awesome products and services like Uber or like Blue Apron or Hulu. And, by opting into checking out these services, you can earn money for your time. And so we've been building this for about 3 years, and we realized as we grew an organic user base across 187 countries with no marketing, and we actually bootstrapped our way through the first 3 years, and we realized that people were coming to us because they liked the ability to earn money. And with just the involvement of technology, we were starting to see that freelance markets like Upwork or Fiverr, Mechanical Turk, these were becoming more popular because people had free time and they had the technology to be able to work anywhere. But the big problem, again, was these pesky fees. These Fiverr, Upwork, or some of these services, they charge 20 to 40% in transaction fees. And for us, having facilitated microtransactions by utilizing blockchain for the past few years, we were able to just figure out a way to make it really efficient. So so this is the way, we wanted to change the world by giving people back their earning opportunity by lowering those fees and allowing people to earn more money and people that are hiring to, save more money as well. So it's kind of a...
Well, I mean, 40% transaction fee down to 1% plus Ethereum cost is a pretty big cut. I mean, how do you have a sustainable business with that?
Yeah, and so it's all about transaction volume at the end of the day, right? So the more that we can make an impact, the more volume that we do is how we plan to really scale this thing. Because the beauty of smart contracts and blockchain is you can automate a lot of the things. And I think for any tech company, and for us having run this company for almost 4 years, the biggest expense is always dev costs. And if we can mitigate this as much as possible, try to open source and allow people to really make contributions as well too, by further, we're obviously building the base, but as we progress along, allowing the community to really make this product better, then we can reduce the fees significantly through automation.
Now, you grew a lot just through organic word of mouth, but are there any techniques that really helped you or really took you from one level to the next level in terms of user engagement?
Yeah, so actually, for us was, we were one of the earliest products in the Bitcoin like blockchain space in terms of like in a mobile app. So I think that the first mover advantages definitely did help. But we had a referral program that was the most successful. So, every time you referred your friend, you got some free Bitcoin. And back then, when Bitcoin was like $200-$300, it was just,
the
good old days, right? So you were receiving like 0.02 Bitcoin for every referral that you made. And as it started, as it started increasing, then we had this massive traffic come in, so when I think in February of 2017, we launched Ethereum as a payment method, and it was at $10. And all of a sudden, we started seeing it jump up to $50 in like a week. And then it went up to $430 in 4 months, I think about June. And we had this $10 offer from Hulu that we were giving out, and people that were receiving this $10 in Ether all of a sudden had $430. And they're emailing us saying like, wow, like thank you guys so much, like I have $430 because of this Hulu offer that I gave you guys. And they're telling all their friends about it. So they're telling all their friends about it, all their family members, like you got to download this thing. And like even if they're not willing to do it on their parents, they got on their parents' phone and started doing the thing as well too, and signing people up for Hulu, because I think the early adopters really saw how big this could get as well. And we just had a really awesome just organic growth as this industry really started to evolve.
It's funny, isn't it? Because talking to some of the people who had success in pretty much any industry, timing seems to be one of the key factors that nobody can control. And, it's not the only factor. You do have to have excellent execution, but that timing, if you get it right, it makes all the difference. And when the rising crypto market, I can imagine that really played into to the success of you and other early Ethereum projects.
So actually, the interesting story is because we started when nobody paid attention to Bitcoin or blockchain, and us being from Seattle, the investment community here, like the VCs and angels, are a little bit more conservative. And every time we made a pitch, and I think I probably pitched to around 100 people, everyone thought it was just a tool for drug smuggling or money laundering. And it was extremely hard to get our first round of funding. So actually, it was 2014 when we first started, but it wasn't until August of 2015 that we got our first incubator round. And then in 2016, we got an angel round. And 2017, we got a seed round. So we almost went bankrupt 4 times, and I had the fortunate opportunity of having a successful food business before, so I was just pouring all my money from my other business, and I was also doing Uber and Lyft and stuff on the side to just have more income, so I can just keep pouring money into this. So I mean, it was just like a lot of the companies that we did start up with together, like probably most of them did fail because they couldn't survive or just put up with it. I think a lot of people just ended up going back to corporate. There's like, hey, I could just go back to working for Deloitte or some of these big companies and make 6 figures. Why should I have to eat this top ramen lifestyle? And I think for Calvin and I, we stuck it through for 3 years until we really got the first fundraising. And then even then it was really hard. So we just kept growing. And this is paid off.
I think with oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I mean, it sounds like just the tenacity to stick it out makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think so. So it was definitely tough.
Yeah. I actually have a question related to that. A lot of the more recent ICO projects have been raising money purely with tokens. Now, back in 2014, when you were raising, did you have to go through a number of equity rounds first, or were investors even open to tokens?
Yeah, I mean, back then I know there were token-related projects, Ethereum obviously, and Mastercoin and some of the earlier projects. But for us, we weren't really involved in that scene. We were more focused on just the traditional equity. So I think the token stuff, it really started picking up 2016, 17. But we were seeking traditional equity. So at one point we were looking at just other crowdsource fundraising methods as well too. But once the token related projects did come up, we did do it after a seed round. But we didn't want to do a token crowd sale until we actually had a product and product market fit, because even though if you, like, from our experiences having running a company before too, even if you have funding and you don't have product market fit, the company's probably going to fail anyway. So we really wanted to prove that before we did anything. So.
And that makes total sense. When you were building your team up, I guess around the same time, 2014, was it difficult to find people that wanted to be involved with blockchain projects because of the Mt. Gox?
Yeah, it was extremely difficult.
Issues?
So yes, not only finding funding was hard, but finding developers were really hard as well too. So I mean, and we also didn't have, none of us got paid for the first 3 years. So we were offering equity, but every time we try to hire some developer, to work with us as like a part-time equity holder, we would always lose talent to Amazon because they were just offering enormous salaries with stock packages that we couldn't compete with, right? So.
Well, that's the trouble, I guess, with having Amazon next door or Google if you're in Silicon Valley.
But it's actually funny because now it's kind of the opposite situation. So we're actually hiring a lot of solid talent from Amazon, and there's a lot of interest in blockchain technology. So as developers, they're always looking for a challenge, and they're looking for some big new opportunity, and we're able to hire some really solid talent from Amazon now.
Have you seen a slowdown in that at all in the past couple of weeks? I mean, we went through a couple of serious crypto dips. It seems to be leveling out now, but what's your sense on sort of the enthusiasm?
No, I think it's growing even more. It's crazy how much this adoption has picked up. I went to Money 2020 a couple months ago, and there was an entire day just dedicated to a blockchain. Whereas opposed to the year before that, whenever I was trying to tell people what project that we're working on, they're like, Bitcoin, like what is that? Blockchain, what is that? It doesn't make sense. And now that people know about it, there's a huge fascination. There's just even a lot of companies that weren't blockchain related are going to blockchain and trying to do a reverse ICO and trying to make it blockchain so they can, get involved in this token ecosystem and just be part of the industry. So it's very fascinating.
Now, when we're talking about your users, the average people who are going out and receiving tasks, that's essentially what it is, right? You get tasks and then you do it and you get paid in crypto. Like, are you finding most of these people are from a certain demographic? Like, are they sort of crypto natives, or are you seeing sort of growth in people trying it out in who have never bought Ethereum or Bitcoin before?
Well, so up till now, primarily it's been male, mostly millennials. 25 to 34-year-olds is our biggest age group, with 18 to 24-year-old the next big age group. But I think the early adopters are these millennial males. But from a country demographic perspective, we have users in like India, Indonesia. We have users in U.S., Australia, like Europe. So we're in 187 countries. But it's very fascinating. So like when there are certain economic events that happen, then certain countries have really strong growth. Like I think last year when India had the rupee ban of higher notes, I think that's the bills that were higher than about like $14 USD equivalent. They banned it to try to curb people avoiding paying taxes. And when that happened, people were looking into Bitcoin. And so we just saw a huge influx of users coming from India and I think South America too, as the economy keeps, the government keeps deflating their currency. We see more growth as well. But US, as JP Morgan keeps getting on the news, and now they're saying bullish statements about Bitcoin. And I think even Goldman Sachs is coming with bullish statements. I think more people are interested. So I think just as there's more news coming out, there's also more traffic coming our way as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, at the time of the recording of this, we just had the CTFC, or I've forgotten what the acronym is. The chair of this financial institution in the U.S. talking to the SEC, saying, "Let's regulate crypto, but in process do no harm." And that was
I think it's
a pretty
beautiful.
big statement, I think, coming from them.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I think that's the thing. So I mean, this industry has become just too big. I mean, we almost reached $1 trillion market cap at one point. And the blockchain really does have the technology to be even more impactful than the internet. And the countries that do regulate it early on and come up with a clear regulation that prevents fraud and that prevents just kind of malicious intent will be the next country to have this, next wave of Googles and the Facebooks and all these big companies coming out of it. So I think the US definitely doesn't want to miss this opportunity, because this next wave is going to generate just tremendous jobs and just earning opportunities for all the citizens and a huge economic impact. So I think most countries are in favor of trying to regulate it somehow. I know China is on the opposite spectrum, but at the same time, that's just their way of doing it. So they're banning it until they can figure out exactly how they can regulate it.
I think that they're going to probably come around. I mean, when you look at the number of Chinese crypto startups that are there, I mean, it's quite powerful, and I think that China would want to be part of it. So,
yes,
are you? So you're a U.S. company, correct? Did you also do your ICO in the US, your token sale?
So we have a lot of the IP actually in the Cayman Islands. So we have the US the C Corp, which is based in Delaware, and then we also have a wholly owned subsidiary in the Cayman Islands. So it's a bit of a hybrid structure that's more recommended in the US.
I think that most crypto companies are using a hybrid structure. How have you found the Cayman Islands as a port? Like, I mean, I've talked to people that have done it in Gibraltar, Malta, Switzerland, some even in the UK. What's been your experience?
So, I mean,
Would you do it again?
So there's pros and cons for every different entity that you can set up with. For us, we have some really great lawyers. That help us advise on how to protect us, as well as we have Deloitte doing all the taxes and auditing and all that stuff for us, so we stay compliant. So for us, is to make sure that any government regulation or anything that happens, that we can stay fully compliant and just be on track. So that's the advice that we received, and there's definitely a lot of the approaches that we do have to take on a more conservative approach, as we're based in the U.S. Versus more of like a Singapore Swiss structure. I think you can be a little bit more about like talking about exchanges or secondary markets. But for us, it's we're all about doing this in the long run. So we want to make it work because we are a US based company.
So when you built on your original StormX token, it was on Ethereum.
Yes,
correct. It was Ethereum based. So, I mean, I guess they were the only show in town at the time. But have you expanded to incorporate other?
Yes, that's actually a great question. So we're always exploring. So luckily for us, since we started so early, we've came up with a couple of techniques that helps us prevent not having to hit the Ethereum network on every transaction, because right now the gas costs are increasing significantly. So for us, we had this first problem when Bitcoin transaction fees went almost from 0 cents to about 50 cents, February 2016. And then, or 2017. Yeah, so 2017. Yeah, and then we had to launch Ethereum. So we had to actually shut down for almost a month, because the Bitcoin transaction fees just grew too much until we figured out how to launch Ethereum, and then we pivoted to Ethereum. And then now Ethereum is having the same issues with congestion. But we're always exploring, other blockchains. there were other blockchains that existed before Ethereum, but one of the benefits of being an ERC20 token is because it's been around for so long that you can actually integrate partnerships extremely quickly. So a lot of the projects, if you have an ERC20 token, it only takes a few hours of dev time versus having to spend like months to integrate. And so for us is allowing mass adoption. And so for us, so right now the congestion isn't as bad because we have an off-chain solution that we use in hybrid with the Ethereum congestion that we've developed, and so the transaction fees are much lower than traditional companies.
Now, do you think that that the Casper project or other proof of stake sort of systems are really going to make a big difference with Ethereum and be a game changer, or do you really think that proof of work is still the way to go? Because I know some people who are like really
so I think there's
adamant
pros and
about
cons
one or
again
the
for
other.
both proof of stake and proof of work, just in terms of scalability and security and everything, right? So I really think the next big thing is going to be something that hasn't been come out with before, and there's some really interesting projects that are doing private blockchains as well as cross chain. There's I think people that are saying that ultimately the blockchain is going to be more efficient by having a tree of blockchains, and there's just so many different things that are coming out and projects that I'm hearing of that I think are going to be the big thing. So the way I see the blockchain technology at the current stage is, we're in the dial-up stage of the internet. So everyone's plugging in their phone lines to connect to the internet. Everything is super slow. And Ethereum is kind of like the AOL, like 95% of the people are using AOL or Ethereum right now, but in 2 to 3 years, we'll see like DSL and cable start to evolve, and like you don't know, like it could be Ethereum, like sharding could really change everything, or it could be one of these new blockchains that are coming along. And I think there's 20 or 30 protocols that are probably in like the top 100 coin market cap now that have some really interesting potential if they can actually execute it. Yeah.
Have you ever considered building your own protocol, the StormX blockchain?
But that's a lot of resources, and yeah.
I guess. Yeah, it is. I mean, you can sort of tell that we're in the early days of the internet, just because, the internet of blockchain, just because people actually consider this. I mean, I don't think anyone out there is who's starting the next Uber or the next Airbnb is going, I wonder if we should build our own Airbnb internet.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you guys have been around for a while. What are some of the key things that helped you get where you are today?
So I think we're
how many?
a lot higher than that. I haven't checked the recent numbers as I've been traveling recently. Yeah. But definitely what's helped us
on the website
is some of the earlier entrepreneurs that were in here before, that were coaching us and mentoring us before we even got to this point. So I think one of our biggest kind of aha moments was meeting Bill Shahara, who is the CEO of Bittrex. So Bittrex is actually about like 10 minutes across from our office. But before we were so we were a very small startup, and we went to this blockchain meetup. It was very small meetup. There was only about like 15 people, mostly people just mining and just as a hobby. But we happened to meet this guy, we didn't even know what Bittrex was back then. And we happened to meet this guy who was giving out dinosaur t-shirts because that's what their logo was back then. And he was just really smart. So we asked him to grab coffee, and we just kept, just asking him for more advice and stuff. And, he eventually became one of our first equity investors. And just having him on board and, him giving us intros to people that were big influencers just opened up so much of a network for us. And so having Bill, just opening doors for us and making it like really useful intros and helping us meet some of our current advisors and partners, and it was just an amazing help for us.
And you're still adding advisors, are you not? Like, you have? So I saw that Charles Hoskinson is on there. Is that recent or
almost a year now? But he's extremely busy guy. And so for him to opt his time to be one of our advisors was a very exciting point of our time. So our team was pretty excited to just be able to get his advice. So just having strong leaders coaching us, I think it's one of the most helpful things that we can always ask for.
So, what's next for StormX? Like, what should we expect from you guys in 2018?
Focusing Q1 of 2018, just making some solid hires, because now we're jumping from like a 12-person company to a 30-person company, and we have to really have the right hires and have the right people just managing and coming up with processes. So now we've been setting up on coming up with a good team, and now regarding the products, I think an iOS app for StormPlay is coming out, and Storm Shop and StormPlay for Storm Gigs. And we're pretty excited to just be able to, have great products launched and for people to use and really grow our network. Because for us, our philosophy is like, hey, you don't have to risk your money buying stuff. You can just do tasks and spend some time and be able to earn crypto. And I think that's a very appealing case for a lot of people around the world. And we want to ultimately reach a product that we can have an impact on 1 billion people.
Isn't it funny how, I don't know, this is sort of an off thought, but isn't it funny how people treat their time differently than money? It's like you could work at a coffee shop and then earn money and then spend your money. Or you could work at tasks and or earn crypto and spend crypto, but we treat it differently. It's I guess
definitely.
that really plays into
just being
why
able
people
to
like
hop
this
on
so
your
much.
phone or your website and then just being able to work. I think it's a great opportunity. And
So for newcomers, for people who are not used to crypto, or maybe who are just stepping in and investing, how would they get involved?
It's very easy.
With
So we
like
have right now StormPlay. It's available on Android, so you can go check out StormPlay and start earning crypto right now. But for us, our goal is to make sure that anyone could really use it, and we're really focusing a lot on UX. And so having the ability to not have to input wallet addresses, and because I think that's one of the biggest hurdles. Trying to teach my dad how to input a wallet address is one of the biggest challenges on how to really adopt Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But once we get to that point, I think that's when we can really start having mass adoption and getting people to use products like ours to just be able to focus on earning rather than the technological challenges on there.
One of the challenges that a number of startups have in the crypto space have had, is, at least in reaching sort of the non-crypto community, is that often you have to buy Ether to get started, right? You have to buy Ether and then trade it.
Yeah. So
I guess you wouldn't have had that because people just earn crypto through the system.
It's more on just can they figure out the way to input their wallet address? But we have a step-by-step instruction on how they could go to any one of our partners and just have a wallet address that they can transfer their funds into.
But what about on the other side with the partners? Like, have you found them sort of receptive to this, or has there been an education process just to get like the partners that are actually giving you money to onboard?
Even right now we do a lot of hand holding with some of the traditional companies that we work with, but at the same time, like it's a lot better now than it was a few years back. A few years back when we were trying to just say, hey, crypto, they would just hang up on us at that point. But now, just like, hey, we have this awesome product and I think you should use us with the crypto. And they're like, okay, we're interested, but we don't know how. And they're like, okay, we'll teach you how. And they're more receptive. So it's definitely better now.
Yeah, it's amazing how times change. I remember hearing Vitalik say at one point that the whole point of crypto is to buy weed on the internet and everything else is an edge case.
Yeah, I really hope
And
so.
maybe this is changing in some people's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. The new slogan, not just an edge case. Okay. So I heard you have some good news that maybe by the time this airs, it won't be
Yeah,
news
so
anymore. It'll
we
be a bit old
actually,
news. But
so
I hear you
our
have a new
team is
partner that
all
you're
about
allowed to
earning
announce.
opportunities, but we also want to make crypto very useful for people. And so one of the really interesting partners that we just signed up with is a company called IonlyFlyFirstClass.com. And I'm sure a lot of people that got into crypto a little bit early have some funds to spend. And it's a website that allows you to buy first class or business class tickets for 30 to 60% discount than traditional costs. And they accepted Storm as one of the first cryptocurrencies, and so you can now use Storm tokens to buy airplane tickets and fly around the world. So if you ever need a vacation, you can use Storm, and I only fly first class to. Yeah, it's an amazing partnership. So.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how many old ladies groceries do I have to carry with
Yeah, so
in
hopefully
order
by the
to
time
earn
this
enough
airs,
storm
we'll have more
to do
jobs,
that?
right?
To go to
Yeah.
take my yeah. All right. Well, Simon, thank you very much for taking the time with me. It sounds like you are really in a growth phase. I wish you all the best as you scale up the team, build the next
Yes,
phase of your
and thank you
product.
so much for your time,
And I
Nathan.
hope that
Really appreciate it.
we
And
hear
enjoyed
some more
being on
good
your
news
show.
from you in the future.
Yeah.
Have a good one.